Coronavirus health risks, mask wearing, and shutdowns may be of concern for many Americans, but right now, there may be some longer term non health consequences from COVID-19. Freedom House has just issued a report on how governments worldwide are expanding online surveillance data collection and censorship during the pandemic. The report is titled Freedom of the Net 2020, The Pandemic's Digital Shadow. Here with more is Allie Funk, Senior Research Analyst for Technology and Democracy at Freedom House. Allie, thank you so much for being here. So this report says new technological systems of social control are occurring. So what are governments doing and how?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. Like you mentioned, we just launched Freedom on the Net, which is Freedom House's annual report on internet freedom. For the past 10 years, we've ranked whether people's human rights are protected online just as they should be protected offline. And this year, we found the 10th consecutive decline of internet freedom. And this is really pushed by the COVID-19 pandemic. We found that governments worldwide and democracies and more authoritarian countries alike are really using the pandemic as a pretext to control online narratives, censor critical speech, and roll out new systems of technological control that can be enabled for mass surveillance.
Who are the worst offenders? I imagine more technologically advanced societies are at greater risk. True? Untrue?
So this year, it's a little unsurprising, but China ranks worst of the worst out of the 65 countries we cover. This is the sixth consecutive year that they have ranked the worst of the worst. Closing out that bottom includes Vietnam, Iran, and Saudi Arabia as well.
Well, we saw China censor comments made by Vice President Mike Pence during his debate with Kamala Harris. No surprise there, right? So we've also seen censorship right here in the USA on social media in regard to Hunter Biden's emails about Ukraine and China. How else is free speech under threat right here in America? What did you find here?
Well, the United States has been on a steady decline for internet freedom for the past 4 years. And this past year, this is really because of enhanced surveillance around the protests for racial justice that we've seen nationwide. So federal authorities and also local authorities have just been rolling out surveillance of social media platforms in a way that undermines constitutional rights, such as the First Amendment, and actually can lead to a discriminatory impact.
Well, what specifically, Allie? What are they doing specifically?
So specifically, different police departments and federal agencies, such as the Department of Homeland Security, are crawling through social media posts, and they're doing so in a way that it infringes on First Amendment rights. So, for example, we have there's evidence and reporting that a counterterrorism task force of the FBI actually showed up at people's homes and places of workplace in a small town in Tennessee and questioned them about their engagement on Facebook in Black Lives Matter protests. So, for example, one organizer was offering rides to and from a rally, and an FBI agent showed up at her house, asked her about this totally protected activity, and she decided because of, enhanced surveillance and also intimidation online that she actually backed out of the protests. So it's showing that this enhanced surveillance is actually impacting people's willingness to use digital technology to bring about social change that they would like.
And of course, this is not just happening with governments. How about corporations? We're seeing it online with Facebook, Twitter, most recently on Hunter Biden.
So tech platforms increasingly play a really important battleground in democracy. This is something we're seeing, in the United States, where platforms such as Facebook and Twitter are important places for, discussion and community debate. It's also a global issue. So we're calling on platforms to make sure that their content moderation is transparent, that it abides by international human rights principles, and that users also have an avenue of appeal and that there's independent oversight.
How about private corporations?
So increasingly, private companies, especially those involved in the surveillance market, the surveillance market is it's a broad international global market that there's not much regulation around it, and it's sort of a black box. Private companies are increasingly selling really these big data surveillance tools to governments, and it's not just they're selling it to democratic governments and also authoritarian governments. And then these tools, because there's a lack of regulation and privacy protections over them, are being deployed in a very abusive way that's undermining free expression, it's undermining freedom of assembly and association, and it's really causing a decline in internet freedom globally.
So, Allie, what do we do about it?
So we lay out a number of recommendations to governments, private companies, and also civil society groups like Freedom House ourselves. So we are calling for an actual moratorium on the use of biometric surveillance like facial recognition, not only by police in the U.S., but also in healthcare and housing and education, until we can do more research and know actually how these tools are impacting human rights. We're also calling for censorship and surveillance technology to stop being exported to countries that are ranked partly free and not free by Freedom House, so that then these tools aren't being used to censor websites and shut down the internet worldwide.
And if people want to find out more, can they get a copy of the report? How? Where?
Yes. Just go to freedomhouse.org and you will see the pandemic's digital shadow on our homepage at freedomhouse.org.
Okay, worth a look. Allie Funk, Senior Research Analyst at Freedom House in Washington, D.C. Thanks for sharing your insights.
Thanks so much.